Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. We are looking at 7 games here on a weird Thursday. Nate and I both feeling a little bit odd about what we've got here. A bunch of good teams playing some bad teams, but we scraped together some best bets for you to put in this video. Also have play props up in our other one, which we're bringing you each and every weekday. So make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along all season with us. Also head to thelines.com as always, throwing plenty of good stuff up on the site right now for NBA and otherwise. Also have that prop finder tool up there that you can use to make sure you're getting the best juice back on all of these bets you're making in the NBA this season. Nate, let's go ahead and dodge these landmines and start off with these Wolves who are at Indy after we know now that Cat has a torn meniscus, which is a little bit sad for those T-Wolves.
Yeah, lots of lines that are just like toss-ups, which I usually kind of look for is like, oh, we don't have to lay any points here, but it's kind of like the books aren't giving you any tips either way what they think is going to happen. They're just like, good luck. Yeah, but I will take the Wolves here in Indy with a bit of a rest advantage, even though they don't have Cat. Maybe that actually simplifies some of their issues in terms of crunch time offense, which has been their biggest Achilles heel here, is that they don't know, like, should they just be running everything through Ant? Should they use Cat in the post, etc.? Well, now you are going to have to run everything through Ant, and it's a pretty juicy matchup for him against Indy. We know not a good wing defense, but the Wolves, they are hitting the road here after a 7-game homestand, but they had 2 days of rest to prepare for that. They are 15-3 with the rest advantage this season. They won 4 straight on the road and covered prior to the All-Star break. They've also won 4 straight without Cat, including 2 this season. They do it with defense. What do you expect? They held Sacramento at Sac to 98 points in one of those wins. So that's extremely impressive and kind of a similar matchup here in terms of Indy's going to try to get you out in transition, spray the ball around, hit threes, neutralize Gobert that way. But they've also won 5 straight against Indy, including one without Cat. They held them to 33% from deep in those matchups and just 108 points per game. And maybe this is oversimplifying a little bit, but Indy straight up is not going to win if they don't score 120 points. You look at it all season, that has not happened but thrice, and it was against the worst teams in the league, Charlotte, Memphis, and Washington. So they're not going to beat a good team without scoring 120. Minnesota has not allowed 120 in regulation since the Cat game against Charlotte, where he went for 70 and just subterfuged their whole offense, and it was a shame on basketball, according to their coach. And since then, they've been locked in. Their last 15, number 1 defensive rating, number 1 limiting assists and threes, which is obviously the key to stopping Indy. Their weakness is giving up free throws. Indy has the 4th lowest free throw rate in the league. And since they've added Siakam, their offense has been consistently less explosive, 119 versus 125. Pace is down, 3-point attempts are down. Sure enough, he has struggled against Minnesota, against a guy like Jaden McDaniels, and then the rim production they have behind him. 94.5 defensive rating his last 7 against Minnie. So I don't know if that's going to be good, having him with a higher usage role. Halliburton has been up and down as he comes back from this hamstring, and he actually went nuts their last time in Minnesota, and they still lost despite having a 33-point edge in terms of three-pointers, which is some crazy good variance in their direction, despite forcing Minnie into 21 turnovers. And they lost because they got pummeled down low. Lost the rebounding by 20, ton of paint points. And again, no Cat in that game. So same situation here. Let's just ride with Minnie as they really, are fighting for that top seed and have generally taken care of business against worse teams.
100%. Yeah, I'm with it. I was going to take that as well. It almost seems too easy in a way, but I would just kind of point to the defense. 2, the defense for Minnie. You still have 4 dudes in their starting lineup in the top 10 in terms of individual defensive rating. It's not just one guy. It's kind of the reason why, like, in a way, Rudy hasn't necessarily just been granted the defensive player of the year. You've also got Wemby out there blocking everybody, but more importantly, like, he's not the only dude doing everything out there, including obviously McDaniels and even Ant, who are 2 of the better wing defenders right now in the league. And that's going to be a place where I agree that Minnesota's going to have a massive advantage with the way that's their weakest place right now for Indy on defense, which is interesting because Pascal has come in and brought around a lot of just lessen the points, obviously, the fast break and all that. And Minnie's just not giving it up. So I'm on that one with you as well. Might as well take the money line there for them with that tiny little spread of 2. But let me go to a game where I feel like normally I would stay away entirely from a Miami-Dallas game, whether they were playing each other or whether they're playing anybody. They're two teams I don't love to have to bet on, with Miami's overall variance and then Dallas's 3-point variance. But I think it's a good spot for Miami. So I'm taking them plus 4.5. And there's a couple of things here going on. I mean, they've been really good on offense over the course of their last 5. They actually have the 5th best offensive rating. Defensive rating has been middle of the pack in that time frame, but overall on the season, we know where their strength lies. And in this one, I think it's going to be a lot of the down low stuff. I think it's going to be a lot of the field goal percentage for Miami around the rim, their ability to get to the free throw line as well. They have the 3rd best free throw attempt rate over their last 5, and Dallas always been bad at that, continues to be bad at that, in the bottom 10 in terms of their opponent's free throw attempt rate, their ability to stop shots from all over the floor. It's a big reason for that effective field goal percentage being so bad for Dallas's, well, it's so good for Dallas's opponents, right? Dallas very bad at limiting what you want to do. Obviously, that the free throw attempts really sort of hurt their effective field goal percentage on defense, because they're allowing guys to get to the line, get those easy shots, and then you've also got the threes and that are coming in against them as well. I think it's a situation where for Miami, they're playing well, but more importantly, like, it seems like a weird game, and that's what I look for. And we both talk about it with Miami. They're going to have Tyler Hero out in this one. He's not playing in this one, and actually Miami's offensive rating in the 25 games they play without him is 119.2 versus the 36 games they played with him, 112. I think that's a big enough sample size for me to go, there's a direct correlation here, and it seems like Tyler Hero is not necessarily a problem, but it is something where Miami's offense seems to open up a bit more, and they're less focused on getting him the ball and feeding him with that usage percentage. There's a lot more Bam touches, whether you want like his passes made and his passes complete, all that kind of stuff goes up, because he's really doing everything from that sort of center of the floor area and letting Jimmy work out on the wing, where Jimmy's also primed to probably get some points in a matchup that won't have much for him if he's going down low, especially. And that's what it's been with Miami. They have the number 1 paint frequency on the season, number 2 paint field goal percentage at this point. Dallas is allowing their opponents to score the 3rd highest field goal percentage when they get into the paint. Not going to be good for them. Also, like I was saying, for the 3-pointers, it's when Dallas loses, especially, it's where they get outscored, because they rely on it so heavily, but they're not able to defend it. They're 5th worst at defending the corner 3 right now. The above the break 3 is something that the Heat have not been shooting quite as much, especially without Tyler Hero. That's not quite where they shoot as much from. Also, Kyle Lowry not shooting those shots for them anymore either. And so, you're still looking at them sort of getting everything going to the basket or kicking out into the corners. And that's where Dallas is continues to be the weakest, with the 5th worst at defending corner 3s with the frequency and their opponent 3-point percentage. So yeah, I think there's just that weird Thursday night thing here going on with Miami Dallas. I'll take Miami to win these weird ones every time.
Well, we always take Miami when you don't expect them to win, right? And Dallas coming home on a 3-game losing streak, you expect them to bounce back. You expect Miami on the front end of a back-to-back maybe to drop one of these. They're at OKC tomorrow. They've actually won 3 straight decisively on the front end of a back-to-back. They've actually covered in like 9 straight for a while there before now the market has inflated on them. And their only losses recently against the Clips, Celtics, and Nuggets, like the cream of the crop. They're playing really well. Specifically, Jimmy Butler is playing really well and not as worried about or messed up by the presence of Tyler Hero, like you outlined there. So you can actually get Jimmy 20 plus in a win for plus 220 and even ladder that up to plus 350 for him to have 25 plus. Love his player prop in terms of scoring and assisting against a really struggling Dallas defense. It's been the worst in the league during that 3-game skid. So yeah, never know what's going to happen with the Heat. Might as well take the plus money where you can get it.
Yep.
So Chicago at Golden State, both teams on a back-to-back here. The spread has crept up to Warriors -8 in some spots, and I don't want to lay that many points, even though they did just crush the Bucks, basically almost shut them out in the fourth quarter. This Bulls team is feisty, man, and they find a way. We saw in Sac to climb back into it, maybe cover. We'll see, but I do like some points here. I do like the Warriors because they have a rest advantage to win. So I'm going to do the money line with just Kuminga to score 15 is about even money, and ladder that, split the unit. Kuminga to score 20 gets you almost 2-1 on your money. And I mean, he's been around 20 points consistently here, 3 of his last 4. His last 7 on back-to-backs, he's averaging 19 and a half. And the last few for Draymond, last 4, he's down to 26 minutes per game on back-to-backs. Wiggs is at 25 and a half. Wiggs is coming off a 4-game layoff, should not have much wind to go much on the back-to-back here. So plenty of minutes to go around for Kuminga, who, by the way, dropped 24 in 24 minutes at Chicago just a month and a half ago. Also 25 points in about that time as a rookie in Chicago. And yeah, I thought Chicago's paint defense would do a good job on John Collins last night. They did not. Kuminga is a far more talented offensive player than he is. The Dubs, yeah, I like we were leaning, like did not trust my instincts yesterday. I was saying like Dubs is a strong lean here to beat the Bucks as they came off the 50-point loss with 2 days of rest. And yeah, sure enough, they waxed them. So it's almost a continued effect here where they have more rest in the long haul than the Bulls, who are playing their 3rd in 4 nights on the road, had to do a crazy comeback and sack, had a close game in Utah, add a little bit of elevation there. They've actually gone over in 3 straight back-to-backs, 17-60 over against the West. But it's particularly a tough matchup against the Dubs because they funnel so many shots out to the 3-point line, right? They give up the most 3-point attempts in the league. And so in their last 4 against Golden State, they've given up 129 points and 23s at 42%. So definitely like the Warriors to get their points here. I mean, their team total at 115 and a half seems pretty good. They've been playing a little bit faster lately. And if you have less Draymond, you have a little bit more of that up and down game where maybe it gets over. I trust them to get the win here and potentially cover. But I think this Kuminga parlay is a nice way to just game that and get it around even money.
Yeah, I feel it. I mean, I'm with you on the Kuminga stuff, not getting the respect at this point. And I think the big thing here for him specifically is the way that they play back-to-backs, to your point. And whenever you can get those younger guys and bank on them getting minutes and getting usage as well, then yeah, you feel good about it. The other thing about the Dubs winning is like they didn't really need to bring it last night. Like you said, by the time the 4th quarter came around, I don't think we've seen a 50-point loss followed by a 35-point win in the NBA. I'm pretty sure that was the stat I saw at the end of that game last night, is that's never happened before. But I think the 3rd and 4 nights on the road playing at Utah, man, is draining as well. So if whatever that does to the total, I think I'm with you on the idea that I don't really want to have to bet on the total at 223. I would lean over, if anything, because of the way that Chicago has played on back-to-backs. To your point, when they have less defense, they seem to just let it fly and go forward on offense a bit more. We'll probably see some Kobe White in there, I think, getting some pushing the pace a little bit more for that Bulls team. But if this game gets into pace at all, and we know it's going to get into space for the Dubs on offense, then yeah, I advantage Golden State for sure in a situation where I don't see it quite as a letdown game. Like there's no ability to let down, right? You're 33 and 28 now if you're the Dubs, which is really impressive considering that they were below 500 just like 3 weeks ago. But yeah, at this point, like they need everything that they can get. And I'm actually I'm kind of backing these Pacific division teams here in the West a bit more lately. It's like one of the more competitive divisions, if not the most at this point in the league. And I do think that when these teams play other teams, they're going to be bringing it a bit more. So I'm with that. I'm going to close it out talking about at least a finals, almost finals rematch, because the Heat beat the Celtics last year, but we got Boston at Denver, always a championship level matchup at this point. And I think that's why you go under 221 and a half, at least starting with the idea that it's going to be, once again, a playoff atmosphere. These teams take each other seriously each of the last basically 3 or 4 times that they played. I think last year there was even that expectation that they were going to meet in the finals, and they took everything seriously and also didn't necessarily show their hand on offense too much, or at least go all out in that sense. And that's what I bank on here for the unders. For Boston, like, we know what they've been doing, man. They've been otherworldly. If anything, though, by the way, just personally, love the idea of continuing to fade the future of Boston because of the fact that everyone's just like now riding them. They do this every year where it's like we beat teams by 20, we beat teams by 30. And so because we're waxing teams and sometimes good teams, that automatically means we're going to just bring it into the play. I'm not with that. But right now in the regular season, I understand where they're at. I think the pace for them, that's been super slow at 24th, basically 6th slowest or so over the course of their last 5 games. I think that's how they continue to play, and that's only exacerbated when they play these Denver Nuggets, who are also very happy to play slowly and get into the half court, especially when they play this team. The way that they played on defense for Boston, that's been equally, if not more impressive than how awesome they've been on offense, which, by the way, they've been the best offensive team in the league easily over the last 5, over the last 10, over the last 15, whatever. They're just on one right now, as we know, with that win streak. But the defense has also been there for them. And I think that's what's going to be coming to the forefront for both of these teams. They have the 4th best opponent paint field goal percentage, and they're 1st in opponent 3-point percentage at the lowest, limiting teams to the 10th fewest 3-pointers made on over the course of their last 5 and last 10, by the way. They're 4th in limiting assists as well. So they've been switching mightily, very, very well. And we know that's also the strength of their defense, aside from the fact that they have those down low protectors and such a massive front court combined with Kristaps. They've also been limiting those 3-pointers and those assists by switching so well all over the floor. And on the road, they play a bit slower. They score fewer points, 115 in their last 5 road games. Their last 5 home games, $132. That's a trend that we've seen continue for the last 2 or 3 seasons and will continue to be the case for them. And so when it's at Denver in this series, I do like this game to go under a bit. The books are on it, though. Like, I mean, this total was about 225.5 the last time they played in Denver, and that obviously went comfortably under. Before that, same thing, and right around 225. I think 221.5 is roughly a relatively fair number, but because of the fact that you add in this, like I said, a little bit of we want to like really keep them from scoring and do everything we can in this sort of matchup, I do lean on the under here. And for Denver at home, basically the best defensive team at home. I mean, Minnesota's been making a serious push once again to just claim that clearly best defensive team in the league. But other than that, you're talking about Denver allowing only 104 points per game on 103.7 defensive rating in every home game, every home game since the end of January, essentially before the All-Star break kicked in, and that playing at a 98 pace, which is actually a little bit slower than they were playing at home and in general. And it's about threes, right? Can you limit threes? Do you switch well enough to guard this team? And this is right. We're talking about the 2 best 5-man lineups in the league at this point. No offense to teams like the Clippers, but like these 2 teams, when they have their best 5 on the floor, you're talking about 5 dudes that can guard. I mean, at least 3 dudes on each team that can guard like 4 positions, which is why they switch so well, which is why they both limit 3 so well. Denver limiting the 3 teams to the 9th fewest 3-pointers made at home over the course of their last 5 games. There's 5 to 10 games since January. And that 3-point percentage, same thing, same concept. Basically about 11.5 threes made for their opponent. And obviously, I think Boston's good for a few more than 11.5, but not the 17 threes that they've been making, essentially, with a good amount of wide open looks. So I just think they're both going to be able to limit what the other team does well enough, and they're both going to slow this thing down to where, like, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if we saw like a 50-point fourth quarter.
Yeah, Boston doesn't necessarily play fast. They just play extremely efficiently. But Denver, like you said, is one of the few teams that can match up and bother them. And Denver's not going to want to play fast. They haven't played fast against anybody, but in particular in this matchup, they have to know that like this needs to be a half-court game, and we cannot get into more of a pace and space game with the best offense to ever do it so far. Denver, I mean, they've been an under machine, 15 of their last 20 under. And yeah, especially at home, you got to lean that way. So I didn't know what to think about this game because it is so high profile, and I'm just going to enjoy watching it. I think Jokic has a little bit of a low prop in terms of points and assists. Has had like 32, 34. He's actually averaged 32 points per game his last 2 against Boston. Maybe you say Porzingis does a better job than Horford or Rob Will has done in those recent matchups, but yeah, I mean that's pretty low for Nikola in a drag out game, but. Looking forward to watching this one. That's about what I have there.
Yeah, fair, man. Like this, it's funny because this is the only game between like 2 really, really good teams tonight, and at the same time, it's like just as difficult to sort of predict as the other ones. I stick to the total here, banking on the fact that they're going to be slowing it down in the half court a bit more for both teams. But that's all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along. We also have play a props up, which 3-1 last night, so still feeling really, really good about those. Same concept here with these best bets, but continue to follow along if you would, and until we see you next, happy betting.